talk about the gig economy now, especially in Australia, and I guess there was a bit of a setback in relation to that with Deliveroo pulling out of Australia, effectively saying it wasn't working for them. I think that was essentially the extent of it. And but what I find interesting is the response actually, where you get these certain restaurant chains, certain restaurants, etc., who are actually pulling out of all of these apps entirely now. Where they're saying that they were never really comfortable with the idea of these sort of global external corporations coming in and being a middleman in the delivery of their product to the customer. And they're now more than happy to sort of see them go by the wayside. And the idea being that if you really like it, then maybe just come and get it from us directly, as opposed to going through a this third party company. Which there's a couple of Melbourne restaurateurs. I actually saw one on TV this morning. Chin Chin, which is a fairly it's been a long-standing restaurant up at Flinders Lane on the other side of the CBD. They've pulled out of all of the apps, all the delivery apps now. I don't think that means the death knell for those apps, obviously, but it's an interesting exploration of the question of their place in there. And that's even before you get into the whole discussion around how they're treating or how they're engaging their delivery drivers, because they're sort of bringing them in as independent contractors that can be summarily dismissed at any time, which is effectively what's happened to all these Deliveroo drivers. And then you've got like this sort of government coming in now saying that they're looking at increasing protections under legislation for what would be termed the gig economy worker. So it's a very fascinating discussion all round, really.
Well, it's look, let's face it. I don't think any of the delivery services for food have ever made money, as far as I know. I mean, they've only been viable off the subsidies, off cash raised in the free money economy. Free money economy's gone. Suddenly you got to make profits, and this is what we see here. And then on top of that, now with government regulations, it just makes it onerous. The gig economy was never meant to be as regulated as it is, but of course it is for a whole host of reasons. And this just puts pressure on the system and just makes it, unfortunately, completely unviable. And it was unsatisfactory for probably gig economy workers before, and it's equally as unsatisfactory now that there's no work at all. So it's a very tough situation, but I grew up with takeaway, and the thought that you would actually pay to get your food delivered when usually your takeaway is only 5 minutes away, and reasonably easy to get to, and you've got ring up and you've got 30 minutes to get yourself there, and 5 minutes to get yourself home and eat it while it's still hot. I've never understood why it would work, and I certainly have never understood why you would pay so much money for a delivery and hand over so much data about yourself in the process.
I will never underestimate lazy convenience. Put it that
I
way.
don't think it's going to. I don't think it's going to work in a high interest rate world. Put it that way.
Well, one last thing I wanted to touch on with this is like who's left standing at the end, and I'm not sure if this is a prediction or not from my perspective, but I'm wondering if like a company like Uber might be able to weather this, only because like food delivery is not their only business. Like basically the Uber drivers are the ones that are their that was what they became famous for, and the food thing was like an addition to that. Whereas I don't think these other services, like I think the other services are just about food delivery. So I wonder if that's what ends up happening. If they end up with like a monopoly situation, that might not be good either.
Well, you'd think Katy Perry's done all right out of it at least.
Got to get my menu log app booted up right now. Yeah.
I don't know how much menu log spent on that, but she will have done all right. I think that might maybe be enough to save menu log. There's probably room, if you really think about it, for two in the market. But why do you want, multinational corporations with bases thousands of miles from where we live delivering us food. It just doesn't make any sense.